Good morning. Let me just start by thanking everybody here who's associated, with the Sugar Bowl. It's been a first-class experience for us. Certainly, playoff games are different than bowl games, but they have done a tremendous job of really making us feel welcome here in New Orleans, and we can't thank them enough for it. Everything's been great. We're looking forward to the game. It's a great opportunity for us and for our program. Having been there now 3 years with Coach Sarkisian, and kind of watching the transformation that's happened, in our program. This is a tremendous opportunity for us now to kind of take the next step and have a chance to play for really what our ultimate goals are. So with that, I'll take questions.
Please raise your hand and wait for a microphone, and please state your name and media outlet. We'll start right here in the front row on the left side.
Coach, I'm Dave Farenthold from the New York Times. One of the things that happened that in late 2021, after that disappointing season, when you guys were looking for more offensive linemen to rebuild the team, this new collective came about, Horns with Heart. It's now become Texas One Fund. They promised we're going to pay linemen $50,000 each to play. How much has the growth of that collective and their focus on recruiting helped you guys build the team that you have?
Well, I would start by saying, in recruiting, we don't lead with NIL. That's not how we do it. I think teams that have done that have really not prospered. It really is. I don't think that's the way you build a team. I don't think that's the way you build the right kind of locker room. NIL is a part of college football now. So certainly we've embraced it like everybody else has, but we weren't the only team in the country recruiting those players that had NIL opportunities for them. I'm sure other schools did as well. We felt like it was really important to add quality players to that room. We never set out to sign 7. We ultimately did. As I told somebody, they kept saying yes, so we kept taking them. And they're all still with us, which I think is maybe one of the more understated things about the culture that Coach Sarkisian has built at Texas. Where at a lot of places they've maybe recruited players who are high-level players, and for one reason or another, even though they're having success at that school, they've gone to other places. That hasn't been the case with these guys. They've all had a role for us, and they've all helped us get to this point. But I do believe, ultimately, the relationship comes first, because the NIL opportunities, they're everywhere now, or at least there's enough of them around that if that was what it was about, it'd be more like drafting than recruiting.
All right, we're going to go to the back, right side.
Hey, Kyle. Ralph Russo, St. Francis Prep High School in Queens.
Class of?
A year before you.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've been with Sark for a while now. He's known as a really good play caller. A two-pronged question here. What makes him a good play caller? And as the offensive coordinator for Sark, what is your role in play calling?
Sure. Yeah, I will say, before I even get to that, Ralph, I heard Frank Pomerico is going to be here at the game as well. So we've absolutely got a St. Francis Prep reunion from different eras going on. Yeah, sure. So I've been fortunate now to be with Coach Sarkisian for 7 years, 7 seasons, from Atlanta to Alabama, and now obviously here at Texas. I've always felt this way as somebody who works with the linemen, and certainly heavily involved in the run game and the protections, and that's kind of the world that I live in more so than anything. I think my biggest job for him in terms of the play calling is to know what he likes. I need to know what he likes to call in the games, because that's really where I spend my focus during the week, to make sure I'm giving him the options that he wants to call on game day. What makes him, and I've said this publicly before, I don't shy away from saying it now. I think he's the best play caller that I certainly I've ever worked with, and I think maybe the top play caller in all of football right now. But I think what makes him that is his ability to see the game in real time. It's not just about the game plan and what we've looked at on film. I think as the game is happening and as the teams that we're playing are adjusting, he's adjusting with them. And I think that makes him unique, his ability to do that at a really high level. On for old St. Francis.
We're going to stay on the right side, right in the middle.
Hey, Kyle, Andrea Adelson with ESPN.com. Good to see you again. I think this is your first availability since the news that Malik is no longer with the team and Arch is now the backup. Two-pronged question. How have things changed for him in the preparation of this game, knowing he's the backup, and how confident do you feel in the progression he's made that if he's needed in this game, he'll be able to get the job done?
I'll start with the second one, and then I'll circle back for you. Good to see you too, Andrew. I think the biggest difference for him has been now he's gotten all of the reps with the twos, whereas prior to that, he and Malik had been kind of splitting reps with the twos. You know, when you get into the season, you don't always have the opportunity to get everybody the amount of reps that you would like to. So I think that's the biggest change for him. We've got a ton of confidence in Arch. I think his progression throughout the year has been excellent. He's a real student of the game, and he's approached it like that from the very beginning. It was not. So I think probably the best thing for him and for us as a team was that when that happened, it was very easy for him to just continue to do what he was doing, because he never approached it like he was the third quarterback or the backup quarterback. He approaches every day like he's the starting quarterback, and I think that's the key when you're in a reserve role to being ready when you're called upon.
We're going to go to the left side, second row.
Kyle Kirk Bowles from the Austin American-Statesman. Obviously, you got a lot of offensive firepower on this team. If you talk about Jatavian Sanders, he doesn't always get the numbers that maybe some other people do. How would you assess his talent and potential and where his place is in the game as tight end?
I think JT is an excellent player and certainly a big part of what we do and a huge weapon. And I think, you know, in the pass game, it's not as easy for the receivers and the tight ends in the pass game as it is maybe for a running back. Like we can get the running back carries. We call the runs and hand them off, and he gets his carries. But, you know, in the passing game, sometimes we may have a play that we think is going to go to him, and maybe just the defense plays a little different coverage and the ball goes somewhere else. And that's where, for us, having weapons in different places, that's really what makes you explosive on offense. The games where maybe X or AD got a little bit more attention, well, those are games I think where JT his numbers are going to go up a little bit. So, you know, he's an explosive player. I will say what has made him different and made him more valuable to us as he's progressed over the last couple of years is his willingness to become a better blocker. Because ultimately, that's what makes you a complete player at that position. You know, you don't want to just be a little bit bigger receiver. You know, if you're going to be a tight end, then the blocking has to be part of it, and you try to force people into base defense, which, you know, this team, I don't know if we're going to talk about them in terms of their personnel, but they will play some base defense. And, you know, the matchups change when people put bigger people on the field on defense.
We're going to stay in the middle on the left side.
Hi, Coach. Caleb Yum, Austin American-Statesman. Christian Jones has become, you know, one of the best offensive linemen in the nation. But 2 years ago versus Kansas, he said that the loss against Kansas in that game in 2021 broke him. Do you remember that moment, and how would you say that Jones has evolved since then?
I think, you know, everybody in our program probably looks at that game where, you know, when you lose a game like that in overtime at home and it ends the season, we all kind of look at it and say, all right, you know, where do we have to go from here? You know, after you get over the initial disappointment, ultimately sometimes you have to break something to put it back together, you know, a little bit better. And that's probably the story of Christian's ascendancy, you know, as a player. You know, we had to completely break him down and kind of put him back together to get him to the point right now where I think he's playing at a high level. He's playing at a really high level. And he was willing to do that. So I give him really all the credit for being willing to buy in to what we were doing as a team, to what I was doing as his position coach, to really focus on the run blocking aspect of his game, which he has, to the point now where, again, I know he's going to have some opportunities above and beyond, you know, what we do this season. But really, he gets the credit for buying into it more than anybody.
We're going to the right side, front row.
Coach, you're talking about the Washington defense. You know, looking at them on film, what stands out about them? What do they do particularly well? And what most concerns you Saturday?
It's very much an NFL-style defense. I think that's the first thing I would say. They play with base personnel, meaning 7 true front players, which is a little bit unusual in this day and age of college football. They'll play nickel defense to 11 personnel, which again is pretty standard. They've got excellent edge players. Their defensive ends are as good as anybody we've played this year. They play at a really high level. They really know their scheme. They don't have as many returning starters maybe as some of the teams we've played, but they have really all over the depth chart 4th, 5th, 6th-year players. So these guys have played a lot of football. They've got excellent power in the middle. Their linebackers are elusive, very athletic. So I think from a scheme standpoint, when I say they're an NFL defense, what I mean is, yes, they've got their first and second down packages, and then on third down, it's completely different. They've got an extensive third down package that really will challenge us in this game.
Stand in the front row.
Chip Brown, Horns247.com. Kyle, in the Alamo Bowl last year, you ran it 18 times for 51 yards. Can you talk about where your running game is now, post Jonathan Brooks, where I think you're averaging 30 attempts, 200 yards rushing, and what you're seeing in particular from Jaden Blue?
Yeah, I think, rushing attempts, certainly we would like to have had more rushing attempts in that game, for sure. When you get down and it gets to the fourth quarter and you're trying to catch up, unfortunately that becomes part of it. You end up throwing it maybe a little bit more than you wanted to. When we're at our best, we have balance. When people ask me to describe our offense, we are built on running the ball and play action pass. That's really what we're built on. We can do a lot of other stuff, but ultimately that's how we build it, from a starting point. It was a shame for Jonathan. He was having a great year. He's a phenomenal human being. So we were all, disappointed when he got hurt. But we're fortunate that that's a really talented room. Whether it's Sed Baxter or Jaden Blue, Keelan Robinson, all these guys have Savion Red. They've all kind of had a role in making sure we've been able to sustain the running game aspect of what we do. So, I think you're going to see all those guys in the game. They're all going to play. And we've got a lot of confidence in all of them. I think that has showed up if you watch our game since when Jonathan got hurt. They're all getting opportunities, and we've got confidence in them.
What is Blue showing you, though, over the last 3 games?
Yeah, Jaden as a player it's not really just like for us. I know you guys only get to see him maybe on game day, but we see him in practice every day. So I look at it a little bit differently than that. But Jaden is a make you miss player. So he's got an explosive aspect to his game. Sed is a little bit of a bigger guy, but Jaden for sure is an absolute make you miss player.
And we have time for 2 more questions, Coach. We're going to start right over here on the left side, front row.
Brandon Marcel, 24/7 Sports. We all know how talented A.D. Mitchell is, but you can't replicate, experience and what he's done in 4 previous playoff games, scoring in each one. How much do you lean on that type of experience going into a game like this?
The experience part will definitely be helpful to him. We've played in other big games this year, so I think the experience of going on the road in Tuscaloosa, of playing in a Big 12 championship game, every time you have an experience like that, I think it allows you to be more comfortable in the beginning of the game. Certainly he's played in big games and playoff games and championship games before. As a player, he's got a skill set that we were lacking before he got here. What I mean is he is the complementary receiver to X, really, that we needed to kind of make the field a little bit more open for both of those guys and for a guy like JT. So, his role in what we do in the game plan is critical. I think he's got an air of confidence about him that I think is good for everybody in the locker room.
All right, final question, front row.
Coach Flood, good morning. Terry Middleton from Horns Illustrated. At the beginning of the season, I asked you about Jake Majors, and you came back and said he's a football cyborg. Is he still super important to the offensive line, and is there other linemen who have stepped up into that cyborg status?
He is a football cyborg. He asks great questions every week, really like next-level questions, that a younger player wouldn't have the ability to do that. And I think he raises the level of expectations for everybody in the offensive line room. He's got very high expectations of himself, of his standard of performance. And I think for the first and second year players, in our program that have a role in that offensive line room, again, he sets the bar for them. And he's a great person, a great example for me to point to on a daily basis of, hey, if you'll just attach yourself to Jake's hip and do it the way he does it, you're going to see the rewards, because obviously he has.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.